Hey, welcome to another episode of the Bookshelf Podcast. Here we bring you well-researched content backed by authentic sources. So plug in your headphones, hit play, and enjoy. And hey, don't forget to subscribe, it really helps a lot.
Welcome back, listeners. Today, we're taking a deep dive into Dune.
Dune. Oh, yeah, classic.
Yeah, and, probably a lot of you already know a thing or two about it.
At least heard of it. I
Yeah.
mean, there's the movies, right?
Right. Both the new ones and the old one.
And that whole fear is the mind killer quote. Everybody knows that one.
Seems like it, yeah.
Oh,
But we're going deeper today.
much deeper.
We're going to figure out why this book, why it got turned into two major motion pictures so many years apart,
Decades even.
and why people are still reading and watching it today.
Still a must-read, absolutely. And watch, of course. It's interesting, how it just keeps captivating audiences.
These people coming back.
It's not just sci-fi. It's like this cultural touchstone that keeps sparking these debates and inspiring, new interpretations all the time.
All right, well, before we get into all that, let's go back to the beginning. I mean, this story, giant sandworms, politics, and this spice that, basically controls everything.
Runs the universe, basically.
What did it all come from?
Okay, well, you might not believe this, but it all started with a research trip.
Get out.
Yeah, Frank Herbert was studying the Oregon dunes.
Well, the dude's in Oregon.
Yeah, specifically how they were using these poverty grasses to stabilize the sand because the sand shifts so much,
So those sand dunes inspired this whole intricate world.
Exactly. Herbert was struck by the power of them.
The power of the dunes.
Oh, yeah, like picturing them swallowing cities and everything.
Wow.
So his research into the ecology and all the desert cultures, it just took him down this rabbit hole of, fascinating ideas.
A rabbit hole.
Oh, yeah. And those ideas, they eventually became, Dune.
That's amazing how an author's real-life experiences can turn into something so big, so complex.
Absolutely. And actually, it gets even better. He drew inspiration from real-world stuff, too.
Like what?
Well, for example, he had these Native American mentors.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they really emphasized ecological balance. And you can see their influence all over Dune. Like the significance of Arrakis and the way the Fremen live in this, harmony with their environment.
So the environmental themes in the book, they're not just there for the sci-fi feel.
No, they're rooted in real-world worries. And it goes even deeper than that, actually. He was a student of history and culture.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He incorporated all kinds of stuff, Bedouin tribes, Islamic eschatology, even the conflicts between the Caucasian Muslims, and the Russian Empire back in the 1800s.
Wow, what a mix. So how did all that stuff actually end up in Dune? Got an example?
Oh, tons. For instance, Camley, the blood feud system in Dune.
Yeah, I remember that.
That's actually from a similar concept in those Caucasian conflicts we were talking about. And Sech, which is a Fremen camp that comes from a term used by Ukrainian Cossacks.
Ah.
Really interesting how he wove all that in. Makes you wonder what else is hidden in there.
Okay, so we've established Dune is complex and comes from all over the place. But why has it been so hard to put it on the big screen? Why did it take two tries so far apart to finally get it right?
Well, you've seen the movies, right? I mean, how do you even begin to put Dune's sprawling timeline and philosophical debates onto the screen? It's no wonder filmmakers have struggled with it for so long.
That's true.
Some early attempts like that Alejandro Jodorowsky project back in the 70s, they were just so ambitious.
Ambitious.
Oh, yeah. But in the end, they just fell apart.
The Jodorowsky version, it's legendary though, right? I mean, Salvador Dali was going to be in it.
Oh, yeah.
And it was going to be like 14 hours long. It's almost sad it never happened. Then there was David Lynch's 1984 version.
Right. Which, it has its fans.
It definitely does.
But it wasn't exactly a hit back then.
No.
And let's not forget the Sci-Fi Channel miniseries.
Oh, yeah, from 2000.
It was a decent try, but it just couldn't capture everything about Herbert's universe. I mean, it's so big. It wasn't until Denis Villeneuve came along with his two-part adaptation that we really saw Dune brought to life on screen in a way that felt, both epic and true to the book.
And I think that's why his 2024 release of Part 2 has been such a huge success, people are really excited about Dune again.
Exactly. I think Villeneuve's films have really captured the imaginations of a new generation of fans,
For sure.
while also satisfying the longtime fans, you know?
Oh, yeah?
They're visually stunning, and they're just a really great entry point into this world.
Okay, so for those who are brand new to Dune, let's break it down.
Like, what's it all about?
Yeah, what's the basic story? No spoilers, of course.
Okay, no spoilers. At its core, Dune is about politics, power struggles.
Yeah.
On this desert planet called Arrakis, it's also about the environment and how fragile it can be.
Sounds intense.
Oh, it is. And this planet, Arrakis, it's the only source of this substance called spice melange.
Spice melange.
Yeah, it's essential for space travel, and it can even enhance, well, human abilities.
So whoever controls the spice controls the universe.
Pretty much, yeah.
Whoa.
The story is all about Paul Atreides and his family, who are put in charge of Arrakis.
I see.
But they quickly find themselves in a really dangerous situation, facing betrayal and danger everywhere they turn.
Yikes. So who else is involved in this fight for control?
Well, there's the Fremen, the native people of Arrakis.
Okay.
They are experts at surviving in the desert, and they have a deep connection to the planet.
Sounds like they'd be tough to beat.
Oh, they are. They've adapted to Arrakis in incredible ways.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the Bene Gesserit, this powerful group of women with, well, let's just say mysterious motives.
That's true.
And some pretty unique abilities. They've been influencing things behind the scenes for centuries.
Wow. So we've got the Fremen, the Bene Gesserit. Who else?
Oh, and of course we can't forget House Harkonnen.
The bad guys.
You could say that. They're rivals with House Atreides, and they're ruthless.
Sounds like a recipe for disaster.
Oh, it is. The story weaves all these different groups together with their competing goals and explores some pretty big themes.
Like what?
Like political manipulation, religious fanaticism, and the dangers of putting too much faith in leaders.
Sounds like a lot to unpack.
Oh, there's plenty more to come. Oh, yeah, it's a tangled web, that's for sure. But there's more to Dune than just the action and the intrigue. It really gets you thinking about some big questions.
Big questions, huh?
Questions that are just as relevant now as they were back when Herbert wrote it.
That's interesting. Like what?
Well, one thing that really struck me, was the way Herbert focuses on ecology.
Ecology, yeah. It's not just a background. It's like essential to the story, right?
Absolutely. It's like he's saying nature is this powerful force, maybe even brutal sometimes, but we need it.
It's kind of how it feels, yeah. It makes you think about how we treat our own planet.
Exactly. And it's funny because Dune was way ahead of its time when it came to that kind of stuff, highlighting how everything's connected.
Connected how?
Like all living things, and what can happen if we just use up all the natural resources.
I see.
Think about those water wars Herbert wrote about. It's almost like he predicted what's happening in some parts of the world right now.
Wow, really? That's kind of scary.
Yeah, a bit. But then you have the Fremen, the way they conserve water and their respect for their environment. It's like a model for how we could live sustainably.
Even in a world where resources are scarce.
Exactly. But Dune doesn't stop there. It also digs into the whole mess of political power.
Oh, right. There's a lot of that in the book.
Yeah, it's a cautionary tale.
Yeah.
It shows how power can corrupt people, even those with good intentions.
Even the good guys.
Especially the good guys. Look at Paul Atreides. He wants to do what's right, but he gets caught up in this struggle for power, and it leads to some pretty bad decisions.
Decisions with consequences, I bet.
Yeah, huge consequences. But isn't Paul's prescience, seeing the future, doesn't that kind of take away his free will?
That's a good question.
People who study Dune still argue about that. Herbert doesn't give you easy answers.
So it's up to us to decide.
In a way, yes. He gives us a character who is fighting his destiny, torn between doing good and this terrible path he sees ahead.
Man, that's deep. Makes you wonder, are we really in control of our own lives? Or are we just following a script?
Big questions, right? But okay, enough with the deep stuff for a minute. We got to talk about those sandworms.
Oh, yeah. The sandworms, they're terrifying, but also kind of awesome. How did Herbert even come up with those things?
Right. They're incredible. I think the sandworms are a perfect example of how Herbert used ecology to create something truly imaginative.
Ecology again.
Oh, yeah. He took this idea of interdependence, how everything in nature relies on something else.
I see.
And he created these creatures that are both destructive and essential to Arrakis.
They're like a symbol of balance.
Exactly. They represent the power of nature, the forces that we can't control no matter how advanced our technology gets.
Huh. It's like they're reminding us that we're not always in charge. Yeah.
Exactly. But let's talk about something a little more human, shall we? The Bene Gesserit.
Oh, yeah, them. They're like everywhere in Dune, pulling strings.
They are fascinating, aren't they? Working in the shadows, manipulating events to get what they want.
What do they want?
Well, their breeding program, for example. They're trying to create the Kwisatz Haderach.
What?
The Kwisatz Haderach, it's like a super being who can see across time and space.
Whoa. Sounds ambitious.
Oh, it is. It shows just how powerful they are and how patient they are. They're willing to wait centuries to achieve their goals.
But are their methods always good? I mean, they manipulate entire populations, right? That's kind of messed up.
It is, and that's something that's really relevant today, this idea of whether the ends justify the means.
Especially when it comes to power.
Right. The Bene Gesserit show us how women try to navigate power structures that are often designed to keep them down. They have to use these, roundabout methods because they don't have the same kind of power as men do in this universe.
Huh, yeah, I see that. The whole Missionaria Protectiva thing they do, planting myths and legends on different planets. That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's like Herbert is saying, control the story and you control the future.
Exactly. And it makes you think about how information is used to shape our perceptions even today, with propaganda, social media, all that stuff.
It's like everyone's fighting for our attention.
Exactly. So, in a way, Dune is warning us to be careful about what we believe, to think for ourselves.
That's good advice. But with the movies out there, why even bother reading the book?
That's a fair question. The movies are great visually, but the book goes deeper. It's full of details and nuances that you just don't get on screen.
So you're saying the book gives you more to think about?
Exactly. You can take your time with it, explore the characters, and really understand the ideas behind the story.
So the book is like a deeper dive into Dune?
I'd say so, yeah. You can really immerse yourself in the world Herbert created and think about the philosophical questions he raises.
Sounds like the book is an experience. And speaking of interpretations, some people say Dune is a critique of colonialism. What do you think about that?
I think that's a valid interpretation.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Look at Arrakis. The native Fremen are exploited for their resources by outsiders. That definitely echoes real-world history.
It's like Herbert is holding up a mirror to our own past.
Exactly. And he's not just saying, colonizers bad, colonized good. It's more complex than that. He shows how both sides can get caught up in this cycle of exploitation and violence.
So even though it's set in the future, Dune is really about us and the choices we make.
Exactly. It forces us to confront some uncomfortable truths about ourselves and about the systems we create. Something else that struck me about Dune was the way Herbert portrays technology.
Oh, right.
It's advanced, but it's also limited. There's this sense that technology can be dangerous if we rely on it too much. Remember, Herbert was writing during a time of huge technological change, but he also saw the potential downsides.
It's like he's saying, hey, let's not forget about what makes us human, about thinking critically.
Exactly. Think about the Butlerian Jihad, that event in Dune's past where humans rebelled against thinking machines. That's a powerful warning about the dangers of becoming too dependent on technology.
Especially relevant now with all the talk about AI and robots taking over, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's like Herbert is asking us, what does it mean to be human in a world where technology is everywhere?
That's a great question, and one that Dune makes us think about, even today.
Exactly. It challenges us to decide how we want to live with technology, to make sure it serves us, not the other way around.
After all this, I'm definitely ready to dive back into Dune. It's a book that keeps giving, Every time you read it, you find something new.
Oh, for sure. It's amazing how it keeps sparking new conversations and new ways of looking at it.
Yeah, it really does. Herbert was a genius. One thing we haven't really talked about yet is this idea of the golden path in Dune.
Oh, yeah.
It's a big theme in the book. Adds a whole other layer to the story. What do you think about it?
Well, it's definitely interesting. The golden path, it suggests that there's this, predetermined path to a better future. But, it's not an easy path. It's full of danger. And Paul, he really struggles with it.
Yeah, he does.
He's not even sure if he's really in control or if he's just, a pawn in some big cosmic game.
Especially with his prescience, right? Seeing all those possible futures.
Exactly. It makes you wonder if free will is even real.
Right. It's a big question.
It is. But I think what Herbert is trying to say is that even if there is a set path, we still have choices to make.
So it's not all predetermined.
Right. It's like we can influence things even if we can't see the whole picture.
That's kind of a relief, actually.
Yeah, it's not all doom and gloom. And the choices we make, they have consequences. They shape not just our own lives, but everyone around us.
And maybe even the future of whole civilizations.
Exactly. It's a powerful reminder that we're not just watching things happen, we're part of it.
By shaping the future, yeah. Speaking of choices, one of the most interesting characters in Dune has got to be Lady Jessica.
Paul's mother. Oh, yeah, she's a force.
She totally defies the Bene Gesserit.
Well, absolutely.
By having a son instead of a daughter.
Huge turning point in the story.
It is. It's like Herbert is showing us that you can rebel against authority even in a system that seems totally rigid.
Exactly. Individuals can make a difference, even in systems that are designed to control them.
And her choice? It sets Paul on the path to fulfilling the prophecy, even though the Bene Gesserit didn't see it coming.
It's funny how that works, right? Sometimes the things we don't expect can lead to the biggest changes. You know, after all this, I'm thinking, Dune is a story that you have to experience in every way you can.
You mean read the book and watch the movies?
Oh, definitely. The movies are great for the spectacle.
Right. Seeing those sandworms on the big screen is amazing.
Oh, it's incredible. But the book, it lets you really get lost in the details and Herbert's ideas. It's like two different sides of the same coin.
I like that. So what's the one thing you want our listeners to remember about Dune? After all this discussion, I mean.
That's a good question. I think the most important thing to remember is that Dune is about more than just spaceships and sandworms.
It's about us.
It's about the human condition, how we deal with power, with the environment, with each other. It makes us think critically, question what we're told, and really consider the impact of our actions.
It's a story that sticks with you, even after you're done reading it or watching it.
Exactly. It changes the way you see things.
Well said. Thanks for joining me on this journey into Dune.
My pleasure. It's always fun to talk about Dune.
It really is. And to all our listeners out there, thanks for tuning in to this deep dive. We'll see you next time.